Welcome back to Jigsaw Blogs. I'm Jacob Walton. Today, we're going to focus on the Secret Jigsaw Games that I spoke to all of you about in my last video. The first game we're going to talk about takes place at the old, abandoned Whitehurst Insane Asylum. And I bet some of you are probably wondering, wait, wasn't Whitehurst Asylum the home of that biological terrorist attack weapon that killed all those 60 kidnapped prisoners several years back? Yeah, no. Turns out it was a jigsaw game the entire time, and the FBI and the police went out of their way to cover it all up from the public. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? For years, Jigsaw fans have received conflicting reports about Jigsaw survivors escaping Whitehurst Insane Asylum the very same week as when the government came forward and talked about a biological weapon that was used to infect and kill dozens of prisoners who were transported there. Thanks to the organ donor and several members of the Jigsaw Rules website, I now have proof that Whitehurst wasn't some biological terrorist attack. Turns out it was one giant jigsaw game all along, and it's all thanks to this one person right here. Detective David Tapp. Tapp, who was once in charge of the Jigsaw investigations, was put on medical leave and later discharged after a failed attempt in capturing Jigsaw, and which resulted in the death of his partner, Stephen Singh. Tapp would continue to work on the Jigsaw case even after he was fired, and became obsessed and hoping that it was Dr. Lawrence Gordon who was the one behind all the Jigsaw attacks. Police would later find at his apartment several pictures hung up on the wall, along with photos, documents, evidence, clippings, all believing that Dr. Gordon was the Jigsaw killer all along. Because Tapp was so obsessed with trying to catch Jigsaw over the death of his partner Singh, Jigsaw decided to create one giant game just for him. His first part of the plan was to set up traps all across Whitehurst Insane Asylum. Next, he would need to bring in several convicted criminals from Detective Tapp's past. So during a monthly prisoner transport, individuals who were all wearing pig masks ambushed two buses. The first bus crashed into a tree when the bus driver claimed that they saw a child riding a tricycle in the middle of the road, but in reality, it was the Billy Puppet doll. The rest of the prisoners on board the buses were taken out by knockout gas. The bus driver and the prison guards were all tossed out of the bus, all unharmed, and the rest of the 62 prisoners on board were later taken to Whitehurst Insane Asylum to play their games. But based on the security footage from the bus, we can identify that one of the 5 pig mask associates was Zepp Hendel. Zepp would then head to the Gordon home to abduct Allison and Diana Gordon, while Dr. Gordon and Adam would play Jigsaw's deadly bathroom game. Unfortunately, Jigsaw didn't plan on having Tapp save the Gordon family from Zepp Hendel. Tapp chased Zepp out of the Gordon's home and followed him all the way to Whitehurst Insane Asylum. He was later shot in the chest by Zepp, who then fled the asylum and went straight to the bathroom game to finish off Dr. Gordon. But instead, he was killed by Adam Stanheidt. Barely alive, Jigsaw manages to save Tapp from his gunshot wound and prep him for his ultimate game. Now, because the FBI and the police went out of their way to cover up all the events from Whitehurst Insane Asylum, I have no photos or documentations to help illustrate this story to you all. Luckily, Jigsaw Rules member Violet Anderson has more on this. Take it away, Violet.
Hey everybody, this is Violet from jigsawrules.com. First of all, I would just love to thank Jacob for having me today. I'm very excited to share my work with you guys. I'm actually a computer graphics animator with one of the city's largest animation studios. And I've been a huge John Kramer fan for a very long time, very many years. And every time I look over his work, his philosophy, his purpose, I always think about good versus evil. Everybody is capable of doing good and everybody's capable of doing evil. And although his work is very disturbing and vile and just not human, I truly believe that he tried to have some good come out of this. And I know that sounds crazy, but again, everybody's capable of good and everybody's capable of evil. And so for years now, I've been trying to get all this information public And we know that Jigsaw, Amanda Young, and a couple of others helped kidnap and orchestrate all these deadly games involving Detective Tapp at the Whitehurst Insane Asylum. So now you have the FBI trying to cover everything up with these games like nothing happened. And I just think that's bullcrap. His work needs to be made public. All this information, everybody deserves to see and hear. So I hope that the images I've created helps you guys understand the events a little bit more. So thank you guys again. And if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to message me. I am on Facebook, Violet Anderson, and I will be talking to you guys soon. Have a good one.
Thanks, Violet. So let's begin. These are the Secret Jigsaw Games. The game begins with Tapp waking up in the reverse bear trap. Billy the puppet greets him to inform him about the errors in his life, such as losing his family, his partner, and even his own health. But Jigsaw decides to give him a chance to escape the reverse bear trap and pursue him. Thankfully, Tapp escapes the reverse bear trap and thus begins his game. Detective Tapp then discovers that he is locked in Whitehurst Insane Asylum and that he and several others are being tested at the same time. He also finds out that Jigsaw planted a key inside his body and that the only way the kidnapped prisoners inside the asylum can escape is to retrieve the key inside him. So Tapp not only has to survive Jigsaw's deadly games, but he has to fight off dozens of victims who have been trapped inside the asylum and had to get the key out of his body in order for them to escape. Luckily, Tapp is able to fight off his first round of prisoners and make his way to save his first victim, Amanda Young. Yes, we know now that Amanda was working with Jigsaw the entire time at Whitehurst Asylum, but Tapp never figured that out. Tapp does manage to save Amanda from her game, but will later be attacked by a man in a pig mask. The pig mask man placed an explosive collar on Tapp's neck, similar to Dr. Lynn Denlin's. This prevents him from escaping the asylum. Being forced to play by Jigsaw's rules, Tapp had to continue his search in finding Jigsaw victims. These victims include Jennings Foster, a cop who killed a homeless man in an accident and framed an innocent man, Melissa Singh, who was the wife of Tapp's partner Stephen Singh, Oswald McGillicuddy, a reporter whose motives were selfish and perverted for his own personal gain, Obi Tate, a man who sought out Jigsaw to be tested. And trust me, he will be again. And Jeff Reinhauer, a man who was suicidal but was saved by Tapp and Singh during their first encounter with Jigsaw. Tapp managed to free victims such as Amanda Young, Jennings Foster, Melissa Singh, and Obi Tate. However, Oswald McGillicuddy was killed just moments after escaping his trap. Jeff Reinhauer was also saved by Tapp, however he committed suicide just 2 days later. One of the big revelations from these games at Whitehurst was the man in the pig mask. Tapp managed to lure him into an electrical trap and kill him. And the identity of the man that Tapp killed in the pig mask was this man right here, Brett Martinez. Looks familiar to some of you, doesn't he? Turns out, he's Dr. Gordon's lawyer. Martinez was one of the 5 pig masks that helped kidnap all the prisoners for Whitehurst Asylum. The other identities of the pig mask were more than likely considered to be John Kramer, Amanda Young, Mark Hoffman, and Zepp Hendel. So with Brett Martinez and Zepp Hendel both working for Jigsaw, it turns out it was against their will. Because when police did the autopsy of Brett Martinez from the Whitehurst Insane Asylum, they found poison in his system which could have been cured by a simple antidote. So in other words, both these men were forced to do Jigsaw's bidding against their will. After hours of escaping death traps, fighting off prisoners, Tapp makes his way to his final test. Jigsaw wanted to prove to Detective Tapp that his obsession with catching him has affected so many people's lives for the worst. And if you don't believe me, just listen to this tape to prove just how obsessed with Jigsaw Tapp was.
It's Jigsaw. Who is Jigsaw? The question rattles around, back and forth, like splinters in my brain. The Kramer is the best bet. He would be the killer. But what about Amanda? No, Baxter. There's too many pieces, and it doesn't make sense. Who is Jigsaw? Who is Jigsaw? Who is Jigsaw?
Poor bastard. Tapp was given the choice: either free himself and everyone in the asylum, or to continue to find out the truth and try to catch Jigsaw. Tapp made the choice to find out the truth, and in a shocking twist, it was Melissa Singh who was the one trying to keep Tapp on track of the games in the asylum. The reason she did this is that Jigsaw had her son Franklin held hostage, and that she had to play his game in order to get him back. Thankfully, Franklin was dropped off at the police station the next morning unharmed. Unfortunately, she made the same mistake her husband made and was killed by a door trigger trap. Tapp then returns to the asylum with the police, and they free the rest of the victims that were still trapped and alive in the asylum. So after the death of Detective Singh's wife Melissa, Tapp went home and he left one final message.
Just figured it was Jigsaw. I never even thought about it until I had to make the choice. Maybe he was a family man. Maybe Jigsaw kidnapped his family. I would do the same thing if Michael was in danger. Even though he ruined my life, he's still my son. I can't let go of this obsession with Jigsaw. I just can't. We're connected, me and him. Trying to find him just results in more people getting hurt. But I can't stop. This is my only solution. My only way out. I've lost everything that matters. Game over.
He then later committed suicide. So with Detective Tapp gone, Jigsaw decided a few weeks later to test a new subject. Tapp's son, Michael. David Tapp's body was discovered by police and his son, Michael Tapp. Michael is then kidnapped by Mark Hoffman. He wakes up in the abandoned Holmes Hotel in a cage right next to Solomon Bates, who was John Kramer's accountant for his previous company, Gideon. Solomon escapes his trap, and Michael is given a second chance. To survive the games, he has to free everyone that was involved with his father's death. And like the reporter he is, he has to investigate his surroundings and find the story of his father's death, and that the truth will set him free. Michael also has to deal with several men who were arrested by his dad in the past. Approximately 38 people were kidnapped for this game and forced in this game along with Michael. Not to mention, Jigsaw himself was there observing each of these games. The first victim Michael saves is the police chief, Henry Jacobs. But it is revealed that Chief Jacobs was a part of an underground drug trafficking operation. The associates involved were police detective Joseph Polzer, who was the muscle, Carla Song, who was a nurse at Dr. Gordon's hospital, who was the supplier, Solomon Bates, who was the bookkeeper, and Sarah Bollock, who was the drug dealer. However, it turns out Michael himself wasn't so innocent. He leaked to the press all of his father's collected evidence about Jigsaw and about him not having a warrant to arrest him, which causes his father to lose his job. Despite saving all 5 members of the underground drug cartel, Henry and Joseph make multiple attempts to try and kill Michael all throughout the games. Henry then murders Carla moments after escaping her game, and Joseph murders Sarah after she helped Michael escape the furnace room at the chemical factory. Solomon Bates and Chief Jacobs were both murdered by Mark Hoffman for trying to kill Michael. Michael then manages to fight off Joseph and kill him just outside the abandoned subway station. He then makes one final attempt to go after Jigsaw. But in his final test, Michael is trapped by Jigsaw, and we know now that because he aided dirty cops in their drug cartel for revenge against his father, Detective Tapp, for a life of abandonment, Michael's life would now rest in the sacrifice of a stranger, and that stranger ended up being a man named Campbell Inman, a dying drug dealer tested by Jigsaw to see if he had what it took to see a son he never knew. Campbell himself also endured vigorous testing, such as surviving the Venus flytrap and dodging trap victims looking for their way out. In the end, Campbell chose to live, and that caused Michael Tapp to die. But unfortunately for Campbell, his body was also discovered after trying to attack Jigsaw himself. And thus, the Secret Jigsaw Games are no more. So the good news is there were at least 12 Jigsaw survivors from both games all within the span of a few weeks. Unfortunately, the grand total of Jigsaw-related deaths is 123 victims. So with 123 deaths all around from each of those 2 games, you just wonder, how many more victims has Jigsaw been responsible for? Well, then tune in next time to find out, as I look back and recount every single known Jigsaw victim. Keep following me on Twitter and Instagram for more updates. I'm Jacob Walton, and this has been the Jigsaw Blogs.